you had a famous line, "Yippee-ki-yay, which is, I think, is one of the greatest taglines in movie history. It really is.
Bruce Willis's ascent to fame can be traced back to an ABC boardroom in 1984. The channel's leading brass had convened to deliberate on Glenn Gordon Cairns, the creator of Moonlighting, wished to bestow the primary male role of David Addison upon Willis, a former bartender from New Jersey with a minor guest role in Miami Vice as his major claim to fame.
I try to tell you fellas, I got the juice.
The network's bigwigs hoped for a renowned counterpart for Sybil Shepherd, a former model turned actress recognized since the late 1960s. However, the sole female executive present expressed a liking for Willis due to his dangerous aura. The role was Willis's, and he infused Addison with an electrifying dynamism. The character was a puzzle, a blend of contradictions. He labeled himself a chauvinist but was content under a female superior, and often displayed empathy and gallantry.
Put this gun in your mouth and pull the trigger.
Aren't you gonna make me dig my own grave first?
With his raspy voice, lean physique, slight balding, cheeky grin, and expressive eyes, Willis convincingly portrayed a man who concealed his vulnerabilities behind humor. Beneath it all, he was a hopeless romantic, an aspect elaborated upon in various episode arcs until the writers paired David with Maddie Shepherd in the third season, ending the show's suspenseful romantic tension. After transitioning from obscurity to television prominence within a short time, Willis soon ventured into movies. Starting with 2 films directed by Blake Edwards in the late 80s, Willis continually embodied the chatty, witty character, such as in the Rat Pack-inspired Hudson Hawk, the doomed reporter Peter Fallow in the ill-fated Brian De Palma adaptation of The Bonfire of the Vanities, and the gangster-turned-suburban resident Jimmy Tedeschi in The Whole Nine Yards and its successor. One could easily imagine an alternate universe where Willis shunned the typical macho roles to become something like a blue-collar Cary Grant, a sly, self-conscious, articulate heartthrob who seldom needed to throw a punch because his words sufficed. However, by the time Willis paused his acting career in March due to aphasia, a neurological condition affecting speech and understanding, he was largely recognized for his roles mirroring hardened individuals reminiscent of Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson, and 80s action icons Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. This transformation is arguably one of the most dramatic shifts in popular culture. By 1998, Michael Bay's sci-fi thriller Armageddon saw Willis embody a sarcastic, moody, know-it-all oil expert, a role inspired by real-life oil well firefighter Red Adair. The character of David Addison was gradually being overshadowed, replaced with a vision of American masculinity reminiscent of the 1950s. Lately, Willis's stoic, hypermasculine avatar was prominently displayed in straight-to-stream direct releases. While filming, his inability to recall lines and apparent disorientation were evident. Rather than acknowledging the actor's evident challenges, Willis's professional collaborators, producer Randall Emmett, production partner Stephen J. Eads, and actor Adam Hewell Potter, opted to limit his on-screen presence, minimize his dialogues, and use off-camera prompts for him. Martin Singer, Willis's attorney, mentioned to the Los Angeles Times, "My client pursued work post-diagnosis because of his passion and capability, akin to many with aphasia who continue their professions." The tragic progression of Willis from a charismatic romantic lead to a reticent bruiser, and the consequent concealment of his declining state, is an unfortunate irony of his later career trajectory. To an extent, his reserved demeanor during a significant portion of his career concealed the fact that he wasn't completely present anymore. Long before John McClane from Die Hard traversed barefoot over shattered glass at Nakatomi Plaza, Stallone had subjected himself to intense physical feats in First Blood, initiating the trend for solo hero thrillers. Rambo was reminiscent of Taxi Driver's Travis Bickle combined with Frankenstein's creation, The model was so sought after that even those who didn't precisely fit the mold embraced it. Eastwood, already in his 50s and a forerunner in this genre, bulked up considerably for films like Heartbreak Ridge and City Heat, to the extent that he began gracing the covers of fitness magazines like his younger peers. In 1989's Black Rain, Michael Douglas, previously typecast as urban antagonists, was portrayed as a Stallone-esque New York policeman assigned to transfer an arrested member of the Yakuza to Japan. His character consistently defied conventions, insulted most individuals he encountered, and eventually was commended for his bravery, hailed as an inspiration for the Japanese. In 1987, Die Hard was introduced to studio executives as Rambo in a skyscraper. The plot's potential seemed so significant that production started even before the lead was finalized. Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Mel Gibson, Kurt Russell, Burt Reynolds, Eastwood, and Harrison Ford were all considered. Willis's eventual selection, albeit for an unprecedented $5 million just to secure a known face, was seen as contentious and, in some circles, amusing. To most, he was recognized as the eloquent romantic lead from Moonlighting. Willis's casting proved to be impeccable for myriad reasons, including his down-to-earth masculinity, which was in stark contrast to the Herculean personas of Stallone and Schwarzenegger, and his ability to portray a quick-witted protagonist. McClane was designed as the blue-collar, Reagan-era American response to James Bond, who longed for his estranged wife, Holly, Bonnie Bedelia, and partnered with other blue-collar individuals as he unapologetically rebuffed government officials, smug bureaucrats, and even the film's antagonist, a condescending German terrorist who was well-versed in classics and had a penchant for luxury fashion. Director John McTiernan consciously minimized excessive bravado and heroism. Despite his confidence, Willis always highlighted the character's fragility, contradicting the norms of 80s action cinema. The sequels to Die Hard were emblematic of the era's action spectacles, emphasizing McClane's bitterness and lethal proficiency over his human essence. It remained uncertain whether Willis was distancing himself from his Moonlighting image, if these stoic assassin roles catered to an inherent need, or if he was merely catering to audience preferences. A notable shift occurred with Pulp Fiction. This film became a monumental hit in 90s cinema and had as significant an impact on crime films as Die Hard had on action genres. Like every Quentin Tarantino film, it was populated with egotistical, verbose characters who communicated primarily through witty banter and monologues. The Willis of the Moonlighting era would have effortlessly slipped into such a role. It's conceivable to imagine him as the philosophical assassin Vincent Vega, but Tarantino opted for a role reversal with remarkable results. Butch Coolidge, one of Pulp Fiction's primary characters, oscillates between a reserved intensity and vulnerability. His silent, action-oriented demeanor contrasts starkly with his affable, vulnerable side displayed with his French girlfriend, Fabienne Maria de Medeiros, especially during the search for his father's cherished gold watch. But in most other sequences, he's a nearly mute man of action, navigating through Los Angeles and taking down foes with a samurai sword and an automatic weapon. This dichotomy in Willis's on-screen character became even more evident in the subsequent decade. He oscillated between loquacious men and those who were reticent. In 1998's The Sixth Sense, Willis took on the role of Dr. Malcolm Crowe, a psychiatrist assisting a young boy named Cole Sear, Haley Joel Osment, who could perceive the deceased. Crowe's strength was in his listening skills and his ability to pose numerous questions. Yet, when reminiscing about the movie, it's Willis's tranquility that stands out. He reprised his subdued demeanor in Shyamalan's 2000 sequel, the dark comic book-inspired Unbreakable, portraying the somber, almost silent security officer David Dunn, who discovers his superhero identity after surviving a train disaster. By the late 90s, Willis had solidified his position as a versatile lead, adept at portraying both rugged enforcers and sensitive individuals. The former roles were what maintained his star status. He embodied harsh and ruthless characters in films like Last Man Standing, Mercury Rising, The Jackal, and Armageddon. One could argue that post-Pulp Fiction, Willis's career trajectory shifted, or perhaps never truly rebounded. He had inadvertently set constraints for himself, making it challenging to break free. Though he attempted diverse character roles in films like Breakfast of Champions, The Siege, Heart's War, Alpha Dog, Fast Food Nation, and The Astronaut Farmer, they failed to resonate as expected. His prominence as a main actor dwindled in the mid-2000s, aligning with his gravitation towards generic tough guy roles. While roles that merged early and late phases of Willis's career emerged occasionally, the witty yet lethal Frank Moses in the action comedies Red and Red 2 being examples, over the years, he was seen embracing more generic, macho roles, diminishing any traces of his earlier, more diverse portrayals. Even films like Looper and Moonrise Kingdom cast Willis in versions of roles he had previously done in the 90s. The industry and perhaps the audience seemed to have forgotten his diverse capabilities. Willis, in a self-referential gesture, participated in 2 of Stallone's 3 Expendables films, which were essentially action-adventure anthologies boasting a collection of every action star ever, from Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jean-Claude Van Damme to Wesley Snipes, Jason Statham, and Chuck Norris. While these films provided bit parts for secondary characters, they were lucrative ventures for aging legends. The concluding phase of Willis's acting journey was dominated by a series of 32 direct-to-video films, most portraying him as stoic hitmen, mobsters, soldiers, and officers. These films were lackluster, with Willis making only fleeting appearances in most. His name and image were prominently displayed in promotional materials, giving the illusion that they were Bruce Willis-centric movies, rather than movies that contained fragments of him. It's disheartening to reflect on this trajectory.
When you were making The Whole 10 Yards, were you ever worried that it would be too good?
Willis had the potential to relish a resurgence later in his career, transitioning into roles devoid of vanity. The specifics of his decline, whether due to personal choices, mismanagement, or his medical condition, remain enigmatic. One wonders if his decline began earlier than perceived, pushing him, or those around him, to accept roles that didn't challenge an actor battling cognitive decline. If he had ventured into roles reminiscent of his earlier versatile performances, perhaps his health issues and potential exploitation would have come to light sooner. The true depth of this tragedy may never be fully unveiled. Further narratives and potential legal battles may ensue, but the most pivotal perspective, that of Willis himself, may remain elusive due to his condition.